Hey everyone, this is Randall, and welcome to the Imperial Minis channel. This video features Battle Report number 30 in our ongoing A Song of Ice and Fire Battle Report series. This video is remarkable due to the fact that out of 30 battle reports on this channel over the course of nearly 3 years, this is the first time that the Night's Watch has been featured on a battle report. The Night's Watch has always been a less popular faction locally for some reason, so they haven't made it onto the channel until now. I will say though that I previously recorded a battle late last year, also between the Night's Watch and Baratheon, that I intended to be a battle report. That file ended up being corrupted, so I wasn't able to produce that video. Although my opponent might say that because he won, I conveniently destroyed that file. But I'm going to stick with my story that it was corrupted, so I wasn't able to make that video. Before we get to discussing the battle, I want to share some info on some upcoming tournaments. So first we have BrawlCon. BrawlCon is an annual tournament taking place in southeastern Texas. This year it's being held from August 15th to 17th at the Marriott in the Sugar Land Town Center in Sugar Land, Texas, which is a part of the Houston metro area. In case you're curious, as I usually am when it comes to place names, Sugar Land gets its name from being the home of the Imperial Sugar Company. So there's a whole bunch of sugar and sweet themed place names on this side of town. BrawlCon is a big wargaming and role-playing convention with multiple events and a variety of vendors. There will also be a 2-day A Song of Ice and Fire event taking place on Friday and Saturday. These events are separate 3-round events, and a winner will be declared for each of them. This will give folks who are in town all weekend a shot at 2 separate events, and it'll make it flexible enough for those who are only able to make it to one day of the events. A portion of badge sales goes to a very worthy veterans charity. It would be great to see some folks from outside of the Houston and Texas community show up to this event. I'll provide some more info in the description, and there will be a group rate for anyone wanting to stay at the Marriott there overnight. Next, U.S. Nationals. The community organized Nationals will be held from Saturday, October 11th through Monday, October 13th. The tournament will be held at the Hyatt in Rosemont, Illinois, which is conveniently directly outside of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. The main event is over Saturday and Sunday, but there is a team event taking place Sunday through Monday as well. Most participants will receive a free Fish Knight Gnome miniature from Parabellum Games. I don't know what Fish Knight Gnomes look like, but it sounds pretty cool. Everyone will also receive a US Nats faction ruler in their faction of choice, and anyone who brings a fully painted army will receive a US Nats textured dry brush palette. There are best painted prizes for each faction and competitive prizes for the top 10 finishers. There will also be prizes for the best in-faction for each faction. Needless to say, if you attend Nats, not only will you have a great time and lifelong memories, but you're not going to be leaving empty-handed. This is the premier US event on the calendar for this year, so if you're able to make it, please consider attending. There are still plenty of tickets available for purchase. Check out the description for links. For this battle, I'm playing against a local player and fantastic guy named Mike, who has previously been featured on the channel. Mike and I are playing at the amazing local Houston area game store Goldmine Games. We'll be playing the Clash of Kings game mode, and for me this battle was kind of a practice match as I tested out a list ahead of an upcoming tournament. I eventually played in that tournament and recorded a couple of matches from it, and those games will become battle reports number 31 and 32, so stay tuned to the channel for those in the upcoming weeks. Now let's take a quick look at the army lists. Starting with my list, this is a pretty standard Stannis One True King and Kingsman list. With Season 6, Stannis players have some attachments that are really hard to resist in most lists. Davos is here in Lightbringers to provide early attack rerolls and a valuable source of healing through supply aid. Brian Faring got a huge boost in Season 6 from the buff to True Conviction and the buff to his Protection of the Crown ability. He's now both a powerful melee and defensive attachment, and I seldom leave home without him in one unit or another. Here he makes the tanky Halberdiers unit both extra tanky and extra lethal in melee. The Flayed Men were buffed in Season 6 to receive an additional attack die at 1 rank, so Baratheon players now have even more reasons not to bring champions of the stack. I brought the Flayed Men to be both a hammer and an anvil and provide some panic support via intimidating presence for potential Melisandre bombs. I threw a Dragonstone Noble attachment into the Flayed Men because I had an extra attachment point, and because Sentinel is a potentially powerful ability on cavalry, giving them extra mobility and the opportunity for free charges. On the NCU front, Alistair is an obvious choice, and Melisandre is here to, well, do what she does. So my list is relatively slow and cumbersome, so Melisandre offers some orbital strikes that will both hopefully soften up my opponent and then force him to come at me rather than to just sit back and get nuked. If the panic game works against me, Melisandre will at least provide vicious to her friendly target, which in most cases will be the Kingsman. For my third NCU, I'm trying out Patchface. Now I don't have a lot of Patchface experience, but you really have to know your opponent's deck very well to make the most out of him. I brought him along for tough matchups where one particular tactics card could ruin an activation or a round for me. And Patchface can help remove some of those troublesome cards from my opponent's hand, but just as usually, he can tell me what my opponent doesn't have. So even if I miss and don't get the chance to discard one of my opponent's cards, I'll at least know that my opponent doesn't have that particular card at that moment. Patchface might be great, or he might end up just essentially being a blank NCU if none of my guesses are particularly helpful. He's the element of my list that I'm most unsure of. Now, turning to Mike's list. Mike has gone for a ranged, heavy, high activation list. His list has the potential to gun down individual units of mine rather quickly if he can focus his fire. Shooting a unit with the crossbows and then charging in with the ranger hunters, retreating and then firing at them again, can very easily wipe one of my trays in the matter of a couple of activations. That said, Mike has only one unit that can really hold the line. His Veterans of the Watch will need to do a lot of work holding up my front line while the crossbows and ranger hunters pepper my units with bolts and arrows. The Watch Marshal is here for some support and an extra activation, but he'll crumble quickly if focused on. The same is true of Ghost, who, if he can get into my Lightbringer's flank, will cause a good deal of trouble, but he is still pretty fragile himself if he gets shot or charged into. Aim on NCO is here because, well, this is a Night's Watch list after all. Craster is here to probably influence the Ranger Hunters and allow them to be unaffected by most terrain types. Donald Noy is here because of those clutch defensive and offensive rerolls that might swing the game when used at the right moment. Now let's take a look at deployments, my initial plan and assumptions, and then get on with the game. Now looking at deployment, there's not a whole lot of surprises on my side here. Stannis is obviously right there in the center to contest the center objective. I have the Lightbringers wedged in between the Halberdiers and Stannis to provide supply aid to either of them as needed, and then to kind of use those other two units as a little bit of protection against somebody trying to get in there and get in the cookie jar. On my far left flank, I have the Flayed Men, who can provide support to that flank, could contest that far objective, and just kind of be a little bit of a threat for my opponent on that side. For Mike, he has his crossbows kind of in the center there with Ghost. He has the Ranger Hunters on my far right flank with the Watch Marshal. So those guys will be shooting a lot of dice and causing some trouble on that side. But Mike's line is quite stretched out. So where my line is very consolidated, his is really stretched out. And he's got his Veterans of the Watch all the way on that far right flank. So, those veterans could maybe capture that point, but then that's going to leave his entire army, which is very ranged, heavy, and very light, like flimsy armor-wise and kind of defensive-wise, open for me to just charge into them or really brutalize them. So his army is really stretched out. I would have maybe opted for a little bit more of a tighter formation, but we'll see how it goes for him. As for my initial plan, not a whole lot of surprises here. Stannis is going to go up the center, hold that objective, and try to just not die and be annoying, as he often is. The Lightbringers will move up to support Stannis and support the front line. With their field of fire, they can cover that center objective, and then anybody trying to kind of get over into support the center. The Halberdiers will they're a little bit of a flexible piece here. They'll do what they need to do. They'll protect the Lightbringers, use Taunt to hopefully throw out some condition tokens, countercharge or preemptively charge anybody who's threatening the Lightbringers, and then kind of reserving the right to use those guys to just sit on that on that leftmost objective. They are a 6-point unit, and them sitting on an objective, they can still just weather the blows from the Ranger Hunters if they need to, or attack if need be. The flayed men, I'm kind of planning to wheel those guys around past that objective and support the center as needed. A lot will kind of depend on what the Ranger Hunters do. If they're trying to push onto that objective, then the flayed men will probably assist in contesting that objective. The flayed men have pretty good armor. Sentinel will be useful if I can keep the flayed men nearby another unit that's being attacked. So that's my strategy. As for what I assume Mike is going to do, I'm going from right to left. Based on where the veterans are, I'm assuming they're going to run up to that objective, maybe score it in round 2, and then try to hustle up to the center. Because by the time that he scores that one, Stannis will very comfortably be on the center objective and maybe even pushing up onto the crossbowmen. I assume Ghost is going to just kind of support as needed. He'll be sort of the cavalry, the maneuver and cavalry component of this list. So I'm kind of assuming he will try to flank Stannis or go behind Stannis and get into the cookie jar there with the Lightbringers and try to mess them up. The crossbowmen, I assume they're going to just kind of scoot forward slowly, try to pepper Stannis as he gets up there. Maybe get into a duel with the Lightbringers if they can. The Watch Marshal, I assume, will just kind of hang next to the Ranger Hunters and provide them an extra die, an extra attack die with his passive innate ability, help them for morale purposes. I don't foresee him doing much offensively. He can always be used to blunt an attack, so you can use the Watch Marshal to kind of charge block if Mike's getting worried about the Ranger Hunters getting charged by the flayed men. He can just kind of sacrifice the Watch Marshal, and then the Ranger Hunters, I assume they're gonna contest that bottom point, but they can't really hold it very well since the flayed men are right there and the halberdiers are right there. So I'm assuming then that the Ranger Hunters are going to mostly try to do their kind of shoot and scoot strategy, or their charge in, swift strike, retreat and shoot kind of thing to maybe try to kill something. But the positioning of the crossbowmen and the Ranger Hunters leads me to believe that they're not going to be effectively able to concentrate their fire on the same target, considering the distances between the two of them. Now, I don't have any other notes or disclaimers before we get started, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'm first player in round 1, and at the start of my turn I play the Baratheon's quest card, Oath of Duty. I attach it to Stannis' Kingsmen, hoping that they will survive longer than most other units on my side and will be able to benefit from that card later. I activate Patchface NCU and claim the Tactic Zone. I forgot to use one of his tokens at the start of this round to fish for a good card to remove from Mike's hand, but I don't often play Patchface, so you may see me forget to do this again. I draw 2 cards, and I place a Weakened token on the Builder Crossbows. Mike activates Craster NCU and claims the Maneuver Zone. He gives Jon Snow's Ranger Hunters the free maneuver, moving them straight forward, and then he gives them Craster's Influence effect to ignore hindering terrain, of which there's quite a bit on the table. I activate Alistair NCU and claim the Wealth Zone, just to deny Mike the ability to clear the Weakened token off of the crossbows. Mike activates his Builder Crossbows, marching them forward 10 inches up the center of the table. Next, I activate Stannis and his Kingsmen and march them straight forward 10 inches as well, putting them easily in range of the crossbows, but keeping the crossbows in easy charge distance for the Kingsmen. Mike activates his Veterans of the Watch, marching them 10 inches also, then pivoting them inward towards Stannis rather than keeping them in line to claim the top objective next round. I then activate Melisandre NCU and claim the Swords to deny Mike the opportunity to get a free shot with his crossbows. I then influence the Kingsmen and have them suffer 2 wounds and take a panic test in order to panic bomb Mike's crossbowmen. Yeah, -1, and then he's Iron Resolve, so that will kind of cancel out 1 fewer wound if they fail. So there will be back to a 5. And they're good. And then Dauntless heals them back for 1. And then I'll have them, or have her do a panic test on these guys. So it'll be at a -2 and +2 wounds, but then it'll be -3 because of the corpse file.
That should put me at 9, I think. That puts me at 9. Take 4 wounds total.
Okay. Mike then activates Aim on NCU and claims the crown, restoring 2 wounds back to the crossbowman and forcing my Lightbringers to take a panic test at a 7+. So 6 goes to 7. They fail for 3, but I'm going to play Azora High. After rolling dice, the unit can only suffer a maximum of 1. If it targets a Relore unit, it passes the test instead, and that part doesn't matter. There's nobody engaged, so they'll just pass the test. At the start of my turn, Mike uses the Watch Marshal's Tactical Reposition Order to shift the Ranger Hunters forward 3 inches. I then use my first of 2 pass tokens for the game to skip my turn. Mike activates his Watch Marshal and moves him forward to stay in line with the Ranger Hunters. Next, I activate my Halberdiers and march them forward 10 inches to put them in line with Stannis and hopefully in range to taunt most of Mike's front line next round. Mike then activates Ghost, maneuvers him forward, then marches him just into the flank of the Kingsmen, but dangerously close and within their line of sight. I activate my Relore Lightbringers, marching them forward within long range of the Builder Crossbowmen. Mike activates Jon Snow's Ranger Hunters and maneuvers them up slightly and then pivots them inward. My last activation is the Flayed Men. I use their free maneuver to move them straight forward, and then I maneuver again to put them close to the Ranger Hunters. And so ends round 1, with most of the action being movements straight forward. Between rounds, I discard Sustained Assault and draw 1 card. Mike discards a copy of A Sword in the Darkness and draws back up to 4 cards because of Samwell's bookkeeping ability. At the start of the round, I use my first Patch Face token to fish for a Fire that burns against the cold. Since I have some panic shenanigans in my army, and since I don't want Mike to have extra ways of re-rolling panic tests to save his attached vow cards, I want to get rid of this card from his hand if he has it. Sadly, he did not have it in his hand, so while I didn't get to discard it from his hand, I also know that none of his 4 cards are a Fire that burns against the cold. For Mike's first activation of the round, he activates Craster and claims the swords. He gives Craster's influence to the crossbows and selects the crossbows to take a free attack against the Kingsmen. Before shooting, the crossbows shift backwards 2 inches. They're outside of short range, so they will not get crossbow rerolls.
No rerolling, right? Unless you ask me to. Need 3s.
No.
I'm looking at 4 hits so far.
Right. I will expend the weakened token.
That's going to be 2 hits.
2. All right. Sundering. So I'm on 5s. So that's 2 wounds. And then a panic test on a 5 goes to 4, goes back to 5, is the corpse spot. And you want me to re-roll that one? Oh, I would have passed it anyway, so then 1 guy comes back from Dauntless. I activate Alistair Florent NCU and claim the Tactics Zone, drawing 2 cards and placing a weakened token back on the Builder Crossbows. I then use one of Alistair's tokens to occupy the Maneuver Zone, denying Mike the mobility it offers, along with the potential for a free attack from the Ranger Hunter's Quickfire order. Donald Noy, NCU activates, claiming the Wealth Zone to remove the weakened token from the crossbowmen and to heal them back up to full. I activate Patchface NCU and I pass with him, leaving enough space on the tactics board for both of the remaining NCUs. Mike now activates Jon Snow's Ranger Hunters and plays And Now His Watch Has Ended, attaching the card to the Ranger Hunters to allow them to restore 1 wound after passing a morale test. They already have Dauntless with Satin, so now they essentially have Super Dauntless. The Ranger Hunters now declare a charge against the Flayed Men. They roll for the charge and are successful. Jon Snow has Furious Charge, so my Flayed Men become vulnerable. With Jon's boldness and courage and the Watch Marshal's innate ability, the Ranger Hunters will be rolling 9 dice on 3+.
So 9 attack, 3s, re-rolling. That is 9 hits.
Okay.
Nothing special about the hits.
Okay. No sundering or anything?
No.
All right. 9 on 3s. That is a lot of not 3s. So they save 3. They take 6. And then...
I'll leave the vulnerable.
Okay. So 6, and then panic test on they're a 6, no vicious or anything, right?
No.
Okay. So 6, we pass that.
Okay.
I have a card to play though. So I'll play Baratheon Conviction, so I'll restore 2 wounds. And then, so let me capture this here. So first 6 guys, they suffer 6 wounds. And then they restore 2 wounds. So they restore 2, so this guy has 1 wound on him, because that would be a 3-4. And then I'll play Final Strike. So this is, for each wound the defender suffered, the attacker takes 1
Really
hit.
sure they are. 5s. I make 2, fail 4.
All right. 4 for 4.
There. And then...
After the Final Strike, we've each taken 4 wounds from the attack. The Ranger Hunters use the Swift Strike ability to immediately retreat. Mike rolls a 5 and can retreat a maximum of 11 inches, which he does. At the start of my turn, Mike pops the Watch Marshal's Tactical Reposition Order to shift the Ranger Hunters backward a further 3 inches to put some more distance between them and the flayed men. I then activate Melisandre and claim the crown, selecting the Kingsmen to receive her influence. I then choose to have the Kingsmen suffer 2 wounds and take a panic test. Panic test on a -1/+1, so they're a 5, suffer 1 fewer panic wound. They're good, so 1 guy comes back. And then zap them for -2, -3 from the corpse cloud, +2 wounds.
Looking for a 9. I do not get it. I take 3 because it's +2, right?
Yep, +2. So and then I'll just target them for the panic test off of the crown also, so it'll net -2 then. 1 from the crown and 1 from there.
Looking for an 8. I am successful.
Now Mike activates Aemon NCU and claims the Tactics Zone. With Aemon's ability, he heals 2 wounds to the Ranger Hunters, and then with the Tactics Zone, he draws 2 cards and puts a weakened token on the Kingsmen. At the start of my friendly turn, I use Supply Aid from the Lightbringers to remove 2 models and restore 3 wounds to Stannis' Kingsmen. For my activation, I activate the Lightbringers and declare an attack against the Builder Crossbows. Due to True Conviction, I'll get rerolls, rolling 7 dice on a 3+. Reroll. Okay, so 7 on...
They are a 5. Made 3. Fail 4. A net of -3.
Mm-hmm.
I am good.
Okay. Mike activates Ghost, maneuvering into the Kingsmen's flank, and then moving again to face into their rear. I activate the Kingsmen, and despite needing a 5 or 6, I declare a charge against the Builder Crossbows. Worst case scenario, I figure if I fail, I'll end up on the center objective, and then pass a panic test to heal 1 more wound from Dauntless. So to me it seems kind of like a win-win. When I declare a charge, Mike uses the crossbow's order Ready, Aim, Release to take a free shot at Stannis using his lowest attack die value before the charge goes off.
Okay, so that's going to be 4 dice. Looking for 3s. It's going to be 3 hits,
Okay.
sundering.
3 on 5. So take 1, and then on a 5 goes to a 4, goes back to a 5. And this guy comes back with Dauntless.
We tried.
All right, 5 up. Not going to do it. So he goes up 7 inches. I think
that will
should
have you
take
on
me.
the token.
Yeah, that should at least take me on the token. So it goes from here up to there, like so, and then he will take a panic test on a 5 again. Passes it. Mike now activates the Veterans of the Watch, and when he does, he plays the Light That Brings the Dawn and attaches it to the Vets. The Vets then perform a march, moving down into Stannis' flank. Stannis is now boxed in on 3 sides by the Crossbowmen, Vets, and Ghost. I now activate the Flayed Men and maneuver them onto the objective. I could have charged into the Watch Marshal and perhaps killed him off, but I may not have been able to surge forth back onto the objective if I had. If I was unable to kill him, I would have just given up the chance to score on that objective this round. It's always a tough decision, deciding to put an expensive unit on an objective, but you really have to think about what the best option is for you at that moment. And for me, I had to weigh having a guaranteed point versus having a maybe point. So I tried to play smart and sat on the objective. Well, I guess we'll see if it's actually smart, but that was the calculus for me at the moment. Mike activates the builder crossbows and attacks Stannis' Kingsmen again. They're in short range, so they will get rerolls.
So we get rerolls. Looking for threes. That's going to be 6 hits.
Okay.
Sundering.
6 on 5s.
And this part of that would shift to...
So that's save 3, take 3. And then panic on a 5. Fail, but I do not take one because that was only one. He has Iron Resolve. So
Gotcha.
I just have my Halberdiers left, so I decide to use my second pass token to force Mike to activate his Watch Marshal first, in hopes that I can taunt him into either charging or taking some condition tokens. Mike then activates his Watch Marshal. I taunt him with the Halberdiers, but Mike elects to just take the tokens. Mike then maneuvers the Watch Marshal into position to charge Stannis in the flank. The charge is successful, and before attacking, Mike plays Sword in the Darkness to give Stannis a vulnerable token.
If you hadn't activated, you'd also take Panicked, but you've already activated. Okay. And then I have 3 dice. Hitting on 3s, re-rolling. Nothing special. Would you like to expend my weaken?
Sure. May as well.
It's going to be 3 hits.
Right.
The only modifier is side.
Okay, so 5s.
And then I will expend your vulnerable.
Okay.
We got one.
You got one and force a panic test. So.
Yep.
All right, one guy. So one in the rear or in the flank and the corpse pile. So he goes from a 5 to a 4 to a 5 to a 6. And he's good, and this guy comes back.
Sounds good.
My last activation is the Baratheon Halberdiers. I attempt to rear charge into the Watch Marshal. I need a 3 to successfully charge. The Halberdiers then just collide with Davos' Lightbringers and take a panic test for failing the charge. They pass the test. It's now the end of round 2. I score 2 points from the objectives, and I decide to discard 1 card, ours is the Fury, and draw a replacement card. I begin round 3 as first player. At the start of the turn, I play Test of Faith on Stannis' unit. As a condition of the card, they'll take a morale test. If they succeed, in addition to the effects of the card, they'll restore 1 wound from Dauntless.
Okay.
So a 6 up, and they fail it. So after Test of Faith fails, Mike uses the Watch Marshal's Tactical Reposition Order to shift the crossbowman back 3 inches. For my first activation, I activate Melisandre. She claims the swords, and I elect to have my Lightbringers fire into the flank of the Watch Marshal engaged with Stannis' Kingsmen. This has the double benefit of maybe killing the Watch Marshal and triggering a panic test into Stannis' unit that will hopefully result in a Dauntless heal. So 7 dice on 3s with no rerolls because I outranked you. Okay, so 5. 5 in the flank.
Looking at 5s. I would be safe. Would you like to expend the vulnerable?
Yeah, I'll use it.
All right. Even so, I am dead.
Okay.
That is a point to you.
All right. And then my...
when that happens...
so before the attack is resolved, I have to take a panic test.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. In case, I don't know if that affects what you're doing, but...
No.
So
I also misread it, so I'm not doing nothing.
-1 from the corpse pile, +1 from Stannis, so they just go back to a 5.
Yep.
And fail, they take 1 wound because of Iron Resolve.
Yep.
I fail the panic test and take 1 wound to the Kingsman. I then have Melisandre influence the Kingsman, and I decide to take 2 wounds and a panic test to trigger Mel's panic bomb against the Builder Crossbowman again. Again, it's on a 5. Now they pass 1. Okay, so they'll get 1 guy back.
They pass when it matters.
They pass 1. Yeah, they pass 1 when it really matters. And then they'll try to nuke these guys again.
Sounds
so
good. We're at minus 3 total.
Minus.
Oh, actually, we might
2.
not be in.
Yeah, I don't think you're in range of that anymore.
Gotcha. So we're not in range of that
you're
anymore.
Not in range of that anymore. So minus 2.
We are taking +2.
+2.
So if I fail on a 3, I am dead.
Mm-hmm.
On a 1, I take 3.
I'll use that.
Ooh. I'm guessing just this.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ooh, we're dead. Bew.
Lucky Melisandre roll. Mike now activates his Veterans of the Watch and plays Watcher on the Wall, attaching that card to the Veterans. Mike declares a charge against the Kingsmen and is successful, impacting the Kingsmen in their flank.
Because of boldness and courage, I'm going to get +1, so 8. Hitting on 3s, re-rolling.
Okay. You have precision, right?
Correct. Okay. So there's going to be 1 that goes through, and then 6 hits at -1 because of side.
6. Okay, so that's going to be a 5. So I take 4. So down here. All right, and panic on a, I think it's 5 and then 6. You don't have vicious, right?
Correct. I don't have.
Okay, so 6. And that is 1 pop of their little to the last token. So, so now I take a morale test. So I think it would just be Stannis. I take a morale test, and on a success, they're not destroyed but remain in play with 1 wound. So morale tests, they're a 5. This would make them a 6.
And then I don't think
that factors in. No. Yeah, that's just the attack. So
because I think this is sort of like otherworldly, out of action.
Yeah, it's not part of the attack. So 6. Okay, so
they pass it when it matters.
Pass it. Yep, and then they get 1 guy back because of Dauntless.
All right.
Stannis got beaten up pretty badly by the Veterans, so at the start of my friendly turn, I'll use supply aid from Davos and the Lightbringers to remove 2 models from my archers and restore 3 wounds to the Kingsmen. I was tempted to remove 3 models and heal 4 to the Kingsmen, but the threat of Ghost had me a little bit worried for the safety of the Lightbringers. For my activation, I activate Alistair NCU and place him on the Wealth Zone, healing the Kingsmen for a further 3 wounds and removing the Weaken token from them. I then use an Alistair token to move him over to the Crown, also freeing the Wealth Zone back up for me to heal Stannis again next turn, and tempting Mike to spend his activation just to block the Wealth Zone. Mike next activates Craster NCU and claims the Maneuver Zone. He places Craster's influence on Ghost and uses the free maneuver to maneuver Ghost closer to Stannis' rear flank. Next, I activate the Lightbringers and march them forward, putting some distance between them and Ghost, charge blocking from the front and putting them in a spot to potentially shoot at Ghost next round. Mike activates Donal Noy NCU and claims the Tactics Zone, drawing 2 cards and putting a vulnerable token on the Kingsman. I then activate Patchface and claim the Wealth Zone to lock Aemon out from activating this round.
So, but there's like no word to it. It's like base rules.
Mike now activates Jon Snow's Ranger Hunters and maneuvers them toward the center, hoping to get a quick fire attack against the Lightbringers. But the Ranger Hunters are just outside of short range. Mike then decides to just pivot the Ranger Hunters after the maneuver to face the Flayed Men. I now activate the Flayed Men, and despite my intense desire to charge headfirst into the Ranger Hunters, I decide instead to sit my 8-point unit on the objective to guarantee myself a victory point this round. They perform a slight maneuver to face more toward the center of the table. Mike activates Ghost, at which point I taunt him with the Halberdiers, since the Halberdiers are within charge range of Ghost. Mike decides to just charge the Kingsmen, so he takes the vulnerable and weakened token from taunt. Before Mike charges, we rewind time a little bit, and he plays the Shield that Guards the Realms of Men on Ghost, giving him +1 blocked hit when he rolls defense dice. Due to the True Bond ability on Ghost, he also benefits from, and now his watch has ended, which is attached to the Ranger Hunters. The charge is disorderly, but still successful. Ghost won't get rerolls and can't benefit from additional tactics cards during the attack.
Ghost. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s. That's 4 hits. Would you like to expend Weaken?
Yep.
Alright, so it's the hits in there with the bogers.
That's still
Still
4
4?
hits, and that's Sundering Rear, so that's a total of -3.
Okay, so on 6s, take 3.
And then we do not have Vicious, so just
Okay.
Rear.
Okay, so rear and the corpse pile, so that's a -3. So I go from a 5 to a 4 to a 5 to a 7. Okay, so 7 up.
You're good.
And they pass. So one guy comes back. For my last activation, Stannis and his Kingsmen will activate and swing at Ghost. When they attack, I play Ours as the Fury to get +1 to hit. We forget that the veterans have disrupt, so I'm rolling a 2+ instead of the 3+ I should be rolling.
Okay.
So 7 dice, rerolls, crit blow, vicious, sundering. I think it's like all the keywords pretty much.
Yep.
So there's a couple of crit blows. Oh, I'm on 2s. That's right, I'm on 2s, so those are good. Okay, so that's, I think that's 8, right? 2, 4, 6, 8.
8 hits. Sundering. That means I'm on 5s. 5. I already blocked +1 hit because of my card. Before anything else happens, I'm going to expend one of Dunnel Noise tokens.
Okay. So
when that happens, I can re-roll it without you getting to expend Vulnerable.
So I can't expend vulnerables on this reroll. Okay.
Yes, Expert Maintenance. He just dies.
I end up getting a couple of 2s that should have been re-rolled for 3+, but we forgot Disrupt, so it's possible that I could have had 1 or 2 fewer hits against Ghost. Ghost ends up dying anyway to 4 unblocked hits, so maybe he would have survived if we had remembered Disrupt. When Ghost is destroyed, Mike plays, and now his watch has ended, to give Stannis' unit a vulnerable token. My last activation of the round is the Halberdiers. They just maneuver forward a little bit to put them in position to march or maneuver onto the bottom objective next round, which will give the flayed men a chance to get taken off of their leash and go hunting the Ranger Hunters. Between rounds, Mike discards a copy of Take the Black, and I discard a copy of In R'hllor's Name, and I draw 3 cards to fill my hand. At the start of the round, I remember Patchface this time and ask Mike if he has a copy of The Fire That Burns Against the Cold. He does not have the card, so even though I didn't force him to discard it, I now know that at least he's not beginning the round with that card in his hand. Mike begins the round by activating Craster and claiming the swords. Craster influences the Ranger Hunters, and Mike selects the Veterans of the Watch to take a free attack action against the Kingsmen.
Going to attack with Veterans of the Watch.
Okay.
8 dice, hitting on 3s. Should be 4 hits. Side.
Okay. So 4 on 5s. That's 4. Yep, nothing to reroll. So 4 guys goes to there. And in the side, it's 5, 4, 5, 6. And they just make it. So one guy comes back. Once I pass the panic test, I play Baratheon Conviction to restore 2 wounds to the Kingsmen, and once the attack is resolved, I play Baratheon Justice to throw a weakened token on the Veterans of the Watch. At the start of my turn, I play my second copy of Test of Faith to have the Kingsmen take a morale test to improve their defense for the next attack they receive and to clear the vulnerable token off of them.
You're good?
All right, good. Take that off. Pass the morale test, so he gets a guy back again. I then activate Melisandre NCU and claim the Crown Zone. I influence Stannis' unit and elect to suffer 2 wounds and a panic test in order to zap one of Mike's units. So he fails it. He doesn't take any extra wounds. I fail the test but take no wounds due to Iron Resolve. I then select the Veterans of the Watch to take a Melisandre panic test at a net -3 plus 2 wounds.
-3 total, so I'm at 8. I'm good.
All right.
Oh,
and then I'll after you're done with that, I have her other pen or the other pen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just now that she took that, I'm just gonna zap them again.
Gotcha.
So that'll just be a -2 and no extra wounds.
I do fail, so 2.
Okay. Mike next activates Jon Snow's Ranger Hunters. When he activates, Mike plays For the Watch and attaches it to Jon Snow's unit, allowing them to charge off of the maneuver zone. He then declares a charge against the Lightbringers and is successful, impacting the Lightbringers in the rear. Furious Charge on Jon gives the Lightbringers a vulnerable token. With Boldness and Courage, Mike is rolling 8 dice on 3+ with rerolls.
So 8 attacks, hitting on 3s, rerolling.
Forgot to take pictures last round.
No problem. I've been forgetting too. That is going to be 7 hits in rear, but nothing special outside of that.
6 on 6s.
7.
7 on 6s. So I pass 1, so that's 6. So it goes down to here.
And then I'll have you expend the vulnerable to reroll the 6.
Okay.
We're going to see if we can just kill him.
Yeah. Okay, so that goes to there. And then -2, -3 because of the corpse pile. So they go from a 6 to a 9. Right there. 6, yeah. 6 to a 9. And that kills him.
All right.
With the Lightbringers dead, Mike gets a Surge 4th, after which I will pop Sentinel on my Flayed Men to either charge or maneuver, depending on the distance. Mike puts distance between his Ranger Hunters and my Flayed Men. I take my Sentinel maneuver, putting the Flayed Men closer to the Ranger Hunters. After this, the Ranger Hunters pop Quickfire to shoot Stannis in the front with 8 dice on 4+.
Yep, and then for our shift on ranged, we're just going to shift to this way. Still within range.
All right.
So now, here's the tricky thing about your running.
It's going to be 4 hits,
You can activate any
subtracting nothing.
Okay, no keywords or anything?
Nope.
Okay, so 4 on 4s becomes 3 because of Test of Fate, just for this one attack. So take 2. Test of Faith goes away. And then Panic on a, just in the front, so 5 goes to 4, goes back to a 5. Good, guy comes back. And then these guys will take a panic test for being shot into.
Yep. We fail and take 2.
I now activate Patchface and claim the maneuver zone, to both deny Mike the ability to get a free charge off of the zone, and to retreat Stannis out of his melee with the Veterans of the Watch. I retreat Stannis off the center objective and back towards my remaining 2 units. Mike activates Aim on NCU and claims the Tactics Zone, drawing 2 cards, giving the Flayed Men a weakened token, and restoring 2 wounds to the Veterans of the Watch. I now activate my last NCU, Alistair, and claim the Wealth Zone. Rather than heal Stannis, I opt to heal the Flayed Men instead, primarily to allow them to remove the weakened token from them. I'm hoping to get a juicy charge off on them on the Ranger Hunters later this round, and I don't want them weakened for that attack. At the start of his turn, Mike plays Stand United Brothers, targeting Jon Snow's unit for the heal, restoring 2 wounds to them without costing his veterans any wounds. Mike then activates his veterans and attempts to charge Stannis' Kingsmen, needing a 4+.
4.
Okay.
Nope. So we will go forward 6, which should put us on zone. It does. We do need to make a panic check. -1. -1, I believe that does fail, causing us 2 wounds.
Okay. I now activate the Flayed Men and attempt a charge into the Ranger Hunter's flank.
That's good.
Alright. The Flayed Men get crit blow on the charge, so they'll have 6 dice with rerolls, crit blow, and vicious. There, and they have 6 dice. When charging, they get crit blow, vicious, and intimidating presence.
Okay.
I don't have any other cards to play or anything. And they get rerolls. Okay. And those are misses. Okay,
So 5
it's
hits.
5.
5 hits. I'm looking at 6s. Make 2. Fail 3. 3.
And they're vicious and intimidating presence.
Okay. So minus 3, 4.
Minus 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, minus 4.
Sounds good. We are successful.
Okay.
When we are successful, we will heal a wound thanks to Dauntless from Saturn.
Okay. Do they still have the one that gives them Dauntless again?
I
think they had. Didn't they attach something to themselves to?
And now his watch has ended, but again.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
The Flayedman charge was much limper than I expected, but Mike is activated out now, so I activate Stannis and his Kingsmen and declare a charge into the Ranger Hunters. Let's see if the one true king can succeed where the Flayedmen failed. I also finally remembered to use one of my objective cards from the game mode, allowing Stannis to weaken the Ranger Hunters when he attacks this round. And charge is good.
Make it.
We go halfway like that. Before I attack, with Oath of Duty active, I give the Ranger Hunters a panic token. Stannis will be rolling 6 dice with rerolls, Sundering, Crit Blow, and Vicious. Crit Blow, rerolls. Okay, so that's, I think that's 9. Yeah, 9 dice with Sundering and Vicious.
3. 6s. Make 1. That means I'll take 8.
Do you have Donald Noy tokens anymore?
Ooh, good point. Yeah, we'll do a Donald Noy token.
That's why I didn't put a vulnerable on you, because I assumed you're going to Donald Noy.
We save another.
Okay.
So 7. So these back 2 ranks.
And then it's going to be...
Intimidating Presence,
yeah,
Vicious.
Intimidating Vicious, so minus 3.
Minus 3. All right. Take 3.
4 from Intimidating Presence.
4 from Intimidating Presence, so that will blow up my unit. Okay. That'll be 3 points to you, ending the game.
All right.
Good game.
Good game. With the Ranger Hunters destroyed, I score 3 points since my commander destroyed his, and with that we shake hands, ending the game at 10-1 Baratheon. Alright, let's do a quick round-by-round recap before I give my thoughts on the battle. Alright, so here's deployment. We've already talked about this. I'm all kind of clumped up on one side. Mike is pretty spread out. Let's move to look at how things look at the end of round 1. So the end of round 1, I'm mostly moving up almost as far as I can. Mike is pretty much doing the same on his side, just kind of keeping his crossbowmen a little bit back, but still kind of within charge range of Stannis. The Ranger Hunters are being the most aggressive unit, I would say, getting up there to try to get ready to take a shot at the Flayedmen. And moving on to round 2, there's been a little bit of blood spilled in round 2. Stannis is comfortably on the center objective. The Watch Marshal has charged into him. The veterans of the Watch are in position to flank charge Stannis. Ghost is back there, determining what he's going to do. The Flayedmen have moved up onto that left objective for me. So at the end of this round, I'm scoring 2 points. And let's move into round 3 now. So end of round 3, a lot of losses on Mike's side here. So Stannis was able to take out Ghost. The Watch Marshal got destroyed. The Builder crossbowmen were also finally destroyed. So Mike is just left now with the Veterans of the Watch and the Ranger Hunters. I've also scored a couple of points from objectives. So I've gone from 2 points in round 2 to 7 points in round 3 by taking out 3 units and scoring two objective points. The Flayedmen are getting prepared to be taken off the leash and get into attacking those Ranger Hunters. Now, the game ends in round 4. Score 10-1. The Flayedmen and Stannis just went to beat up Jon Snow. I wanted to try to knock out Jon Snow with Stannis so that I could get the extra points from the Clash of Kings game mode. And after that, we could have technically taken it to the end of the round, but I was already at 10 points, and there really wasn't anything else that could be done. You could say technically the score could have been 11-2 with Mike holding that center objective with the vets, and then me moving the halberdiers onto that far objective, but we just ended it here 10-1. Alright, so how did this battle go? Well, it ended up being very lopsided, but I think there were some underlying issues with both army composition and deployment that could have helped Mike to have a much better game. Looking at Mike's list, he really only has one unit that can brawl, that being the Veterans of the Watch. His other units do not want to be stuck in melee. In my list, I have 2 Speed 5 infantry units and a Speed 5 cavalry unit. That gives me a substantial maneuver advantage. Yes, Mike did have 2 solo units that were also very quick, but they were both relatively weak and could only ever really hope to be a speed bump for my army if they were being used defensively. I see what Mike was going for with the double ranged unit list, but I think he would have been better served by swapping out one of his ranged units for another melee unit, such as Shadow Tower Spearmen or Sworn Brothers. He could have even brought a Ranger Vanguard cavalry unit instead to threaten my flanks or challenge my cavalry. Also on the NCU front, I don't think Craster really proved to be of any value to Mike here. I think another NCU, such as maybe Dennis Mallister, would have been more valuable. Setting aside the possibility of list changes, let's look at the deployment and what went wrong there, and then I'll offer a suggestion to how Mike maybe could have deployed in a way that supported his list a little bit better. Alright, so looking at this alternate deployment, I've kind of put Mike's units in a similar arrangement to my units, just kind of clumped up a little bit. So he's got the Ranger Hunters now in the center, and I keep calling the Veterans the Ranger Hunters. He has the Veterans of the Watch in the center, and I don't know if it's really been mentioned in this battle report yet, but the Ranger Hunters have that Watch Marshal in them, so those guys can be really terrifying if you get stuck into melee with them and can't retreat, or you have to just keep smacking them. So he really wants to get those Ranger Hunters in my face. So the way he had them originally with them all the way off to the side was really wasting their potential, I think. So here I think he really wants to just throw them into the center and then support them with his ranged units. So if he can move those Veterans up into the center, and then he can keep his Ranger Hunters kind of on the side of the Veterans to kind of sneak around and take pot shots at Stannis, and then charge into Stannis while Stannis is already engaged with the Veterans. And then off to the far right there, he's got Ghost. He can use Ghost to capture that point. I know you want to use Ghost to kill stuff too, but Ghost is only 3 points. And if Ghost is just sitting on that objective while the rest of my army is occupied elsewhere, that's going to be an easy 3 or 4 points for Mike over the course of the game, just Ghost sitting there. Now, on the other side of the Veterans, you've got the Crossbowmen. I think on this side of the Veterans, you're going to want to be a little bit more cautious. So, it is a little risky on this side, having my Halberdiers and my Flayed Men. Mike could reasonably expect my Halberdiers to just jump on that left objective and sit there, but the Flayed Men are going to definitely be coming after him. So, he might want to just use his Crossbowmen as long as he can to dump shots into Stannis or the Lightbringers, and then when needed, maybe just throw that Watch Marshal at my Flayed Men to just stop them up and maybe delay the inevitable demise of the Crossbowmen for 1 round or so. But I think this deployment would have served Mike a lot better, keeping his units closer together, able to support themselves, or support each other rather, and then keeping Ghost over there rather than the Veterans is, I think, a much better use of his army points. Alright, well that does it for Battle Report number 30. I recently attended a fantastic tournament here in Texas and was fortunate enough to film a couple of games, so I'll be featuring those 2 battles in the next 2 Battle Report videos. I want to give a big thank you to Mike for joining me on the channel again. Mike is a really cool dude, and it's always a real pleasure to play with him. If you enjoyed the video and haven't already, please consider giving it a like and commenting, telling me your thoughts on the list and the gameplay. And before we go, please keep in mind the upcoming tournaments that I mentioned earlier in the video, and consider attending them if you're able to. Links to those are in the description. Until next time, this is Randall, signing off.